Good evening, ma'am. My name is May Kenneth Sanshubis, BA1B students, and we choose the topic about the serosal retraction. Negative side. What about the testimony of the witnesses? We may dismiss the newspaper reports as being less significant, though of corroborative value. Their news was secured from others. One reporter got into the chapel during part of the 24 hours. He states that studies, frolics of infancy, and boys' stories were the subject of our chat. As for the actual eyewitnesses, some eight testified to having seen one or more of acts mentioned above. Only three testify to having seen the signing of the retraction. The major witnesses are priests, government officials at the time when church and state worked hand in hand. The bulk of the testimony comes from notarized statements in 1917 or later. Having made these remarks, it is none the less true that the testimony is impressive. It cannot be dismissed, as some have tried to do, with a few sarcastic comments. The argument from the testimony, as well as the arguments as a whole, can be better judged only after weighing this evidence over against the arguments rejecting the retraction.
Affirmative side. The story of the retraction has been told and retold. Various newspaper reports of the last hours of Rizal was republished on December 30, 1896, or the day shortly thereafter. However, the first detailed account came out in a series of anonymous articles in Barcelona magazine. Next.
What is the case against the retraction? First, the retraction document is said to be a forgery. As we have noted, the document plays a significant part on both sides of the debate. There are four prongs to the case against the document itself. First of all, there is the matter of handwriting. To date, the only dated scientific study leading to an attack upon the genuineness of the document is that made by Dr. Ricardo R. Pascual of the University of the Philippines shortly after the document was found. A study which he incorporated in his book Rizal Beyond the Grave, taking as his standard some half-dozen unquestioned writings of Rizal dating from the last half of December 1896. He notes the number of variations with the handwriting of the retraction document, the following being the most significant ones according to the present lecturer. The slant of the letters in the standard writing gives average several points higher than the average yielded by the retraction document. And perhaps, more significantly, the most slanted letters are to be found in the document. There are significant variations in the way individual letters are formed, with reference to the signature. Pascual notes no less than 7 differences, one of the most significant being indicates of stops, which, says the critic, are most naturally explained by the fact that a forger might stop at certain points the document what form to make the next. There are marked similarities in several respects between the body of the retraction in the writing of all three signers, Rizal and the two witnesses, thus serving the point of Pascual's conclusion that this is a one-man document. The only scholarly answer to Pascual is that given by Dr. Jose I. L. del Rosario as part of the thesis which he prepared for his doctorate in chemistry at the University of Santo Tomas 1937. Although most of the details are the result of a later study which Father Cavanna asked him to specifically prepare. Dr. Del Rosario's main criticism may be said to be that Pascual does not include enough of Rizal's writing by the way of comparison. On the basis of the larger selection of standards, he is able to challenge a number of Pascual's statements, although this lecturer has noted mistakes in Del Rosario's own data. Dr. Del Rosario's conclusion is that the handwriting is genuine. The second prong directed against the authenticity of the document itself is based on the principles of textual criticism. Several critics, beginning so far as I know with Pascual, I have noted difference between the text of the document found in 1935 and other versions of retractions, including the one issued by Father Balaguer. Sorry. Since this kind of criticism is related to my work in biblical studies, I am now engaged in a major textual study of my own, which consists first of all in gathering together all available forms of the text. To date, it is clear from my own studies that at least from the morning of December 13, 1896, there have been, discounting numerous minor variations, two distinct forms of the text with significant differences. The one form of represented by the document discovered in 1935 and certain other earlier records of the retraction. Two phrases in particular are to be noted in line 6 Iglesia 6 Católica and line 10 La Iglesia. The other form of the text is much more common, beginning with text of Balaguer published in 1897. In place of Iglesia Católica, in the line 6, there is a single word Iglesia. And in place of La Iglesia, there appears La Misma Iglesia. There also tend to be consistent differences between the two types of the text in the use of capital letters. The second form also claims to be a true representation of the original. The usual explanation of these differences is that either Father Balaguer or Father Fee made errors in preparing a copy of the original, and these have been transmitted from this earliest copy to others. Father Cavanna makes the ingenious suggestion that Father Balaguer made corrections in the formula, which he supplied to Rizal according to the charges which he supplied to Rizal, writing out his own. But he didn't accurately note them all. On the other hand, it would have seemed that the copy would have been carefully compared at the very moment or at some other early date before the original disappeared. It is not surprising that some have wondered if the retraction document was fabricated from the wrong version of retraction stated issued by the religious authorities.
Are the major arguments for the destruction. Although the arguments had been represented by others before him, Father Kavana, 15, gives a well-organized summary which are adopted by most subsequent defenders. The point which follow are based on Kavana with some minor deviations.
A third argument against the genuineness of retraction documents, which also applies to the retraction itself, is that its contents is in part strangely worded. In the Catholic religion, I wish to live and die. Yet, there was little time to live, and also Rizal's claim that his retraction was spontaneous. And fourth, the last, finally, there is the confession of the forger. Only Ronis has this story. He and his co-author report an interview with a certain Antonio K. Abad, who tells how on December 13, 1901, at a party, at his ancestral home in San Isidro, Nueva Ecija, when Abad was 15. A certain Roman Rocky told how he was employed by the friars earlier that same year to make several copies of a retraction document. This same Roque had been previously employed by Colonel Ponston to forge the signature of the Revolutionary General Lacuna on the document which led to the capture of Aguinaldo. Ronis also includes a letter dated November 10, 1936 from Lorenzo Ador Dionisio, former provincial secretary of Nueva Ecija, who was also present when Rocky told his story and confirms it. On the basis of the above arguments taken as a whole, it would seem that there is reasonable ground to at least question the retraction document.
Number 1. Since the discovery in 1935, the retraction document is considered the chief witness to the reality of retraction itself. In fact, since then, by words on implication, the defenders have said the burden of proof now rests with those who question the retraction.
The second main line of the argument against the retraction of the claim is claim that other acts and facts did not fit well with the story of the retraction. Those most often referred to by writers beginning with Hermenegildo Cruz in 1912 are as follows. First, the document of retraction was not made public until 1935. Even members of the family did not see it. It was said to be lost. Second, no effort made to save Rizal from death penalty after his signing of the retraction. The usual rebuttal is that Rizal's death was due to political factors, and with this, the religious authorities could not end free. Third, Rizal's burial was kept secret. He was buried outside in the inner hall of the Paco Cemetery, and the record of his burial was not placed on the page for entries of December 30th. But on a special page where at least one other admitted non-penitent is recorded. Perhaps others the evidence is conflicting. It is asked by the defenders of the retraction. How else could an executed felon be treated? Perhaps the ground outside the wall was sacred, also, or could have been specially consecrated. To top the rebuttal, Rizal's Christian burial certificate was discovered on May 18, 1935. In the very same pile with the retraction document. The penmanship is admitted by all to be by an amanuensis. Whether the signature is genuine is open to question. Fourth, there is no marriage certificate or public record of the marriage of Rizal with Josephine Bracken. To say that these were not needed is not very convincing. Fifth, the final Rizal's behavior as a whole. Finally, Rizal's behavior as a whole during his last days at Port Santiago and during the last 24 hours. In particular, does not point to conversion. Whether written during the last 24 hours or somewhat earlier, Rizal's ultima or ultimo adios does not suggest any change in Rizal's thought. The letters which Rizal wrote during his last hours do not indicate conversion or even religious turmoil. In the evening, Rizal's mother and sister Trinidad arrive and nothing is said to them. About the retraction, although Father Balaguer claims that even in the afternoon, Rizal's attitude was beginning to change and he was asking for the formula of retraction. It is all well and good to point out that all the above happened prior to the actual retraction. A question is still present in midst of many.
Number 2. The testimony of the priest at the time of the event, of eyewitnesses and other qualified witnesses. Those closely associated with the event, such as the head of the religious order, the archbishop, and etc.
The third chief line of argument against the retraction is that it is out of character. This argument has been more persistently and consistently presented than any other, beginning with the anonymous leaflet of December 31, 1896. It has been asserted or implied in every significant statement against the retraction since the time. It has seemed to many, including the present lecturer, that the retraction is not in keeping with the character and fate of Rizal, as well as inconsistent with his previous declarations of religious faith.
Number 3. Act of Faith, Hope, and Charity, reported, recited, and signed by Dr. Rizal, at least by witness and signed prayer book. This is very testimony if true, for Rizal was giving assent to Roman Catholic teaching, not in general way as in the case of retraction. A statement by especially to a number of beliefs which he had previously repudiated. According to the testimony of Father Balaguer, following the signing of the instruction, a prayer book was offered to Rizal. He took the prayer book, read slowly those acts, accepted them, took the pen, and saying Plido, I believe, he signed the acts with his name in the book itself. What was it Rizal's sign? It is worth quoting in details the act of faith.
First, let us look at the character of the man. Rizal was mature. Anyone acquainted with the facts of his life knows this is so. 35 is not exactly young, and Rizal was far more mature than the average of this age. It is not likely, then, that he would have been shocked into abnormal behavior by the threat of death. He had anticipated for some time that the authorities would destroy him, and even the priest admit that during most of his last 24 hours manifested a type of behavior consistent with all that was previously exhibited during his mature years. I worked closely with prisoners for some 10 years and accompanied two of them to the scaffold. Their behavior was restrained and consistent. I would have expected results to be the same furthermore. In the deepest sense of the word, Rizal was already a believer. In my book and elsewhere, I have argued strongly that Rizal was not a free thinker. In the usual sense of the word, history is full of the unchallenged reports of real conversions. But the most significant meaning of true conversion is the change from unbelief to belief, not mere change of ideas. Rizal's conversion is also out of keeping with his mature religious thought. It is not as though Rizal has been bowled over by confrontation with the new thought of Europe and by antagonisms towards religious authorities who had injured his family and who worked hand in hand with a restrictive colonial regime, but had never fully thought through his religious convictions. As I have written elsewhere, the fact that similar views are found from writing to writing of his mature years and that they made a quick resistant whole suggests that such theology as he had was fully his own. Rizal had a consistent and meaningful system of Christian thought, and it is therefore harder to think of his suddenly exchanging it for another. So much for the debate of the present to the present. I have tried to state fairly the arguments, and it is perhaps evident on which side the lecturer stands. Nonetheless, I do not feel that the question is settled. What then remains to be done? Is there a way out of the impasse? Are there areas for further investigation? Number one, let a new effort be made to keep personalities and institutional loyalties out of future discussion. It is time for honest investigators to stop speaking to the Protestants, the Masonic or the Roman Catholic view towards the retraction. Let the facts speak for themselves. Let the retraction document be subject to neutral scientific analysis. This suggestion is not new, but in view of the present state of the debate and appropriate to the approaching 30 years since its discovery, it would be fitting to at last carry this out. Furthermore, it would be an act of good faith on the part of the Roman Catholic hierarchy. If the document is genuine, those who favor the retraction have nothing to lose. In either case, the cause of truth will gain. I would suggest for this analysis a government bureau of investigation in some neutral countries such as Switzerland or Sweden. Should neutral experts claim that the document discovered in 1935 as a forgery, this of itself would not prove that Rizal do not retract, but it would prove further study. As a third step, then to be undertaken only after a new evaluation of the retraction document. The Roman Catholic hierarchy should feel bound to allow its other documents pertaining to Rizal's case to be investigated. The burial certificate, the signature of the prayer book, and perhaps also certain other retraction documents found in the same bundle with that of Dr. Rizal's. Fourth, the story concerning the forger should be investigated further. Last, if assurance can be given that the above steps are being undertaken, then let there be a moratorium on further debate and greater attention given to the risk of Rizal's life and thought, in particular to his mature religious faith and thought. Let me close with the words of Senator Jose Jokno. Surely, whether Rizal dead, a Catholic or an apostate adds or detracts nothing from his greatness as a Filipino. It is because of what he did and what he was that we revere Rizal. Catholic or Mason, Rizal is still Rizal. The hero who courted death to prove to those who deny our patriotism that we know how to die for our duty and our belief.